Hello everyone, my name is Lowko, and welcome back to a professional match of StarCraft 2. Today it's time for a Protoss versus Zerg, where we find ourselves on Hardwire. Spawning right here in the bottom left corner of the map, playing with the red Protoss probes from Denmark, we have MaxPax's. His opponent in the opposite corner with the blue Zerg drones from Italy, we have the current world champion of StarCraft 2, and his name is Reynor. Alright, now I know I do this every single MaxPax's cast that I do, but honestly, it bears repeating. MaxPax's is steadily climbing through the ranks, to the point whereas right now, as of me making this video, I just had a quick look on Aligelek. The man apparently reached a new high. According to Aligelek, he's the rank 9 player in the world overall, and on top of that, also the best Protoss player on the planet. Now, obviously, Aligelek, it's a statistics website. It just basically keeps track of all of the online and offline tournaments that are being played in StarCraft 2, and obviously right now, most of those events are just online. You gotta take the stats with a grain of salt, because is MaxPax's really better than, like, say, for example, a Trap, who has won many premier tournaments just this year, right? Is he really better than, like, a Showtime, who historically has been doing incredibly well? It's very hard to say, right? But it definitely is a huge indication that MaxPax's is very rapidly climbing through the ranks, and he's improving at a rate that seems to be higher and faster and better than everyone else out there right now. So, yeah, if there's one takeaway from the current progression that Max is on, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the man is considered to be one of the very best going into 2022 and maybe 2023 as well. Obviously, it's hard to say exactly when someone peaks and, you know, when they stop improving, but MaxPax's, he's only 17 years old. He's steadily getting better. I mean, I'm excited. I've mentioned this as well in previous casts, but his story reminds me a lot of, well, for example, Reynor. Reynor also was looking ridiculously good when he was like 14, 15 years old, but he just couldn't really participate in any of those tournaments because he was too young. There's usually like a minimum age that you have to be because of, you know, laws, right? Anyways, he couldn't participate in a lot of the premier events until he was 16, and then it took a little while for him to reach the peak that he's on right now. But yeah, Reynor obviously, fantastic StarCraft player right now. And in hindsight, you could sort of, you know, see it coming from a mile away that both, you know, both Reynor and Clem were going to be some of the very best players that we've ever seen in StarCraft 2 when they were like 16 years old or so. And MaxPax's, I mean, seems like a very similar story to me. Anyways, is this going to be an easy match for MaxPax's? No. Reynor, of course, I mean, I know that this is a longer game of Zerg versus Protoss. I don't know who ends up winning it, but I do know that Reynor is an absolutely fantastic late-game Zerg player. Once upon a time, actually, when Reynor was like 16, 17 years old, his late game definitely was his weakness. He was very good in the early game, very strong in the mid-game in particular, so he was relentless with the Zergling, Baneling run-bys, and he was doing those at a skill that nobody else had really done before. Late game was definitely his main weakness, but these days, definitely one of the best late game players on the planet. So what's interesting about the Zerg versus Protoss matchup, actually, if you're a Zerg player, usually you will complain that Protoss late game is too strong, and likewise, if you're a Protoss player, you will probably complain that Zerg late game is too strong. It's kind of an interesting dynamic. So when it comes to Zerg versus Protoss, I mean, I'm assuming that this is going to be a proper late game one. I mean, I know that MaxPax's likes to play pretty turtily, and he likes to play very defensively, so I don't really... Yeah, I think that this is going to be a very Skytles heavy game. Wouldn't be surprised anyways. The funny thing about Skytles late game is that, like, the tippity top of the Zerg players, like, for example, Reynor, but also Serral, Dark, Rogue, right? Those sort of players come to mind. They make late game Skytles look pretty weak, but everyone else below that skill level seems to struggle. Or at the very least, everyone who's not, you know, a top 10 pro gamer. It's kind of an interesting unit composition, so it's been a little bit since I've casted a Skytles heavy game, so you know what? I'm secretly kind of hoping for one, and MaxPax's already putting down his second Stargate here. I think that is a clear indication. He's already going into the +1 flyer attacks as well. I think that's a clear indication that he does want to go for that late game. Anyways, Oracle over here at the third base getting 2 worker kills. Void Ray instead of the main base. I was staring at the cybernetics core because I'm a terrible observer. But that's because I'm observing and casting at the same time. Sometimes I do miss little engagements here and there. Sometimes I get angry comments on that, actually, where someone gets upset at me, like, that I miss things that are going on the screen. Look, guys. I'm just a one-man production team, okay? It's actually fantastic at tournaments, especially when there's, like, I've casted a whole bunch of offline events, right? It's really cool when there's, like, a dedicated observer. So, as a caster, you can just sit there and you just cast the game, and then if the observer misses something, I mean, they usually don't, but you're not to blame, right? I try and keep my eyes on the minimap as much as possible, but it's very easy to accidentally miss a small engagement like that. Anyways, so far, though, a little bit of damage being done. Protoss players definitely are looking to get some work done as well. Losing this Oracle would really suck. You don't really want to give it away, so it gets to stare at this huge fossil right over there in the distance instead. Robo facility coming up as well for Max, so he's going to be able to transition if he wants to. But obviously, he could also just use that for observers, for a warp prism, things along those lines. We'll have to see when he decides to stop producing Void Rays. Interestingly enough, Reynor already going into the +1 melee. So this is a thing that I've seen quite a bit from, I think this was DRG, who I think was doing this reliably in pretty much every single Zerg versus Protoss against Stargate that I saw him play. So the idea behind this, right, is that you go for a Zergling, Baneling-based army, and you just make a gajillion queens in the meantime. So by the way, there's the 3rd Stargate as well as the fleet beacon. So yeah, Max definitely is not going to be transitioning here. But you basically will make a ton of queens here as Zerg. At the very least, that's the strategy that I think Reynor is going for. You just make like 1 million queens. Queens basically make it so that you can't really lose in the earlier stages of the match. And then you can get a lot of drones out. You can get a lot of Zerglings and Banelings out. And you just sort of try and soft contain the opponent on the bases that they have. So if you can contain the Protoss player on like 3 to 4 bases, that's absolutely fantastic for the Zerg. Because Zerg will definitely be outmining them. At this point, 1 queen going down. Quite a few of these Void Rays also taking actual hull damage, though. So Protoss units do regenerate shields. They do not regenerate their hull, so... I mean, for a queen, maybe decent, but not ideal. Anyways, there's the Robo Bay already coming up, and 2 carriers on the production tab. 4th Nexus is being built. MaxPax's, MaxPax's is playing very greedily. Reynor, of course, still very capable of getting those Zerglings out. And yeah, all of this will be cancelled. Immediately, though, it's going to be replanted as the Void Rays come home. But obviously, this does open up the opportunity for the queens to start going across the map as well if they want to. So, is there a Roach Warren out at this point? There's an infestation pit. Are we going to go straight into a hive? Yeah, as far as I can tell, this is just 10 queens right now, 11 queens, and then a whole lot of Zerglings and Banelings. He could go for a queen march if he really wants to. But it's a little bit different when you do one with Zerglings and Banelings rather than Roaches and Ravagers. One of the advantages of having Ravagers is that you can force, with Corrosive Biles, for those Void Rays to move. Anyways. No, I think that Reynor is just kind of defending. I mean, he could go for a push if he wants to. This is a map where you can knock down these rocks, and then it's a pretty small walk right over there, right? A pretty short walk from the edge of the creep right there all the way until the base of the Protoss player. Either way, Banelings are now coming up. Centrifugal hooks, I think. Not done? Really? Oh, we didn't even start it. All right. So that's a little bit of an oversight, actually. He's trying to create chaos right now, running into the 4th base right here with Zerglings, while then simultaneously also going in with Banelings over at the 3rd base. Is MaxPax paying attention? He is. So far, this is not really going so well for Reynor. I mean, he's got a lot of eco. He's going into a hive already, so we're 8.5 minutes into this game. There's the centrifugal hooks. I'm pretty sure he just forgot it. He's going into a hive. I did see Pathogen Glands, which is the Infestor energy upgrade, which is kind of interesting. Zerglings now once again running on over towards the 3rd base. A lot of gateways are coming up. Looks like a Templar Archives will also be produced. A bunch of probes are starting to fall right now, though. The thing is, killing probes and all is very nice, but it's very hard at this stage in the game to prevent the Protoss from being able to get towards that max out arm. And that's where... Maybe that's why he's called the MaxPax, right? Maybe this is the Pax and he's gonna be Max. Anyways, that's where a lot of Zerg players on the ladder, including myself, get a bit salty about Protoss, because despite the fact that right now Reynor has done a reasonable amount of damage, despite the fact that he's got a very quick hive, he's got 90 plus workers here for some time, he's going already into +3, it's extremely difficult to kill a Protoss player. With good amount of static defense, with good positioning, with a couple of disruptors, maybe some storm here and there, and then obviously those Skytos units, it's very difficult to actually be able to overwhelm them. So most of the time in these sort of circumstances, you can harass them, but you can't really kill them. Let's see how much damage can be done here. Once again, beautiful positioning right there by MaxPax's. Yeah, great pylon right there, great warp in. Using the Stalker, not because it could actually, you know, deal damage to those Banelings and Zerglings very well, but just because it's extra thick, right? It's thick with like 3 C's and all uppercase with spaces in between the C's and everything. No, it takes up more space right there, so it buys a little bit more time for those probes to be able to run away. MaxPax's repositioning all of this. So this is all intentional, right? This is not just him randomly plotting down a bunch of gateways and a bunch of structures. He's just making sure that those pylons are creating wall-offs and blocks all over the map. Anyways, what do we have right here on the side of the Zerg? We have Infestors following around about 18 queens. I was going to say a dozen, but apparently 18 queens. And now we also are going into about 8 Brute Lords. Big warp-in inside of the main base, and I love this from MaxPax's, actually. This is not a very mobile Zerg army. Zerglings are coming up, but at this point there's only 13 of them. The main base is actually quite vulnerable. At the same time, we also do have a push right over here at the front. Fungal growth, though, does push this back. I think this is just to create some chaos here. MaxPax's currently not maxed out yet, but he's probably just trying to buy some time here for those zealots. Eventually, though, I mean, those Zerglings, they do have +2 already. Adrenal Glance is also done. So I've got a feeling that they're going to be quite feisty. Although, well, they do need the spawning pool to be alive. All right, in order to be produced, right, I'm just going to mass transfuse the spawning pool back up to full health. I always kind of feel like it's easier to just, you know, put down a new spawning pool a little bit, you know, further away, because I feel like those warp-ins will continue happening throughout this match, but if you have the energy for it, it should be a-okay. All right, yeah, so MaxPax's once again goes back home. Indeed, just pushing onto the creep to try and create some multitasking errors, but Reynor not really too phased by any of that. He's already started up his Spore Crawler forest, actually. So he currently has 23 Spore Crawlers out on the map, 25, and he's adding on more. So the problem is, right, we're soon gonna get to a situation where, as I tried explaining earlier, Zerg can't really kill the Protoss. As in, like, Zerg can't really attack the Protoss very effectively at all because of all the static defense and the proper positioning of the structures and Disruptors, Storm, Skytles, right? But at the same time, we're also gonna get to a point where Protoss can't really be killing the Zerg because there's so many Spore Crawlers. It's an interesting debate whether or not late-game Protoss is better or late-game Zerg. I think if Micro personally, or perfectly personally, my opinion is that Zerg late-game is stronger than Protoss. It's just extremely difficult to pull off. But where are you gonna get? Where are you gonna engage, right? So say you're MaxPax's in this situation. Are you gonna fight on top of like 24 Spore Crawlers here with a bunch of queens ready to transfuse them, with queens obviously able to move around very effectively as well? Or are you gonna, like, you know, get fungled here and maybe even microbial shrouded, I suppose, by the Infestors, neuroparasited? I mean, it's very difficult to fight this. MaxPax's instead trying to go for some backstabs here. But soon the Spine Crawlers are being added into that mix of static defense as well, and then obviously Zealot Warpins aren't going to be nearly as effective anymore. Instead, what MaxPax's is doing is just grabbing more bases on his side of the map. So one thing is true for these sort of fights, and that is that most of the time, well, I mean, right now, actually, it's been a very good trade here for Reynor so far, but most of the time, I mean, it's actually only 5,000 resources lost at this stage in the game, 13 minutes into it. That's pretty, yeah, that's pretty small. Anyways, most of the time, those engagements, they go favorably for the Protoss player as far as resources lost go. So if you can mine out his entire section of the map, like if we have like a split map scenario, oh, this is quite nice actually for the Zerg. A lot of probes going down. 20 probes. Huh, that's not bad at all. If it is a split map scenario where both players mine out the same exact amount of resources, Protoss will usually come out ahead just because Zerg doesn't trade very efficiently. So Reynor is probably just going to try and take as many bases as he can, mine out as many mineral patches as possible, and make sure that he's got a huge bank to be able to go for those tech transitions. The Mama ship. Ooh, okay. Didn't even realize that that one was produced. The Mama ship has a skill called Mass Recall. It takes, I think, 100 energy. Actually, no, it's... Which one is it? No. That's... No. Okay, yeah, no, anyways. He's gonna be sending it in very soon, and it can essentially offensively recall whatever he likes towards the other side of the map. The Mama ship right now in the top left-hand corner is gonna be capable of recalling... Oh my god. This huge Protoss army over here. Now, that was not an ideal trait there, I don't think. Couple of good storms going down, but the Prism also gets killed. Either way. Yeah, he's just waiting. Now he's got enough energy. Bring it home. So obviously, even though Zerg normally is very mobile, this late-game Zerg army is actually rather slow, especially the Brute Lords and the Queens and all of those units. They have a hard time going around the map, so MaxPax's can quickly dart in and out of those engagements. I mean, imagine if he gets the Mama ship instead of the main base and then recalls, while Zerg is, like, defending over here, right? It's incredibly potent. One cool thing about that recall ability is that it actually doesn't overlap with the recall of the Nexus. So, yeah, Protoss can actually recall once again after being aggressive with the Mama ship recall towards the Nexus and get back to safety. So you can warp all over the map. I love that ability. It's one of my... Yeah, I think it's one of the coolest things that Protoss has, and also one of the least used things that Protoss has. So I'm hoping that MaxPax's is going to show that a couple more times throughout this match, because it's very badass. At the very least, as far as, like, you know, science fiction nerds go, right? I feel like my science fiction nerd chills are tingling. Anyways, Reynor right here, abducting one of those carriers, getting a little bit of damage done. Dark Shrine is coming up. We're even going into the +3 upgrade here. I guess Zealots will be extra feisty. Also, a couple of Ultras here being added into the mix. The main downside of Ultras here is that they take up quite a bit of supply. Oh my god. The Queens! It's a sad moment. Look at Brenda over here accepting her death. The Queens need to be replaced by other units. They have served us well. I like how he's now transfusing the Queens that are... Anyways. They had to open up a little bit of supply, I think, to be able to produce a couple of those Ultralisks as well. Okay, here's the Fungals. There's the Parasitic Bomb as well. That is such a killer combination. Oh my god. Oh my god. This is what I mean, man. So I can't do that. I play a lot of StarCraft. Well, I mean, recently I haven't played so much as I usually do. Here's the... Okay, we're gonna go back. I was just talking about this. The Mama ship going over towards the main base. It's almost got 100 energy once again, so while a bunch of those units over here are being fungled and, you know, taken care of, there's a mothership inside of the main ready to be recalled. I mean, this army was supposed to have, like, 5 more Void Rays here into the mix as well, so maybe this isn't as good of a recall as the previous one. I think you gotta kill whatever you can and then get the hell out of here. Zealots, though, with charge and +3 are gonna be ready to go in for the counter as well. Max, I think you need to go home, man. You know that those Corruptors are gonna show up soon enough. Greater Spire does go down. Go home, go home, go home. Without... there's no way. Hello. Why are we... Okay. I mean, this is actually working out a little bit better for the Protoss player than I thought. Imagine if there would be all of those units that just get fungled and you know... half the Protoss army got destroyed on the left side of the map. At least most of the Void Rays did. Imagine if those were in the mix right here. My god, really? MaxPax's is just pushing through. Okay, for some reason that seemed like a horrible fight for me. Look at those Ultras, by the way. Aiding the Protoss. I guess they're... I say that. They're also, taking a lot of the hits right there of those interceptor ships. Alright, now we're finally gonna recall. I do feel like that's a little late, but... I'm just thinking if that, like, combination of Parasitic Bomb, Fungal Growth, and Corruptors and whatnot, if that didn't happen here, that may have just been the game-winning move. Anyhow, that little move right there, though, that Reynor did, it's very difficult to pull off properly. The way you hotkey these sort of armies is actually quite insane. You need like 4 to 5 army control groups, which is quite difficult. I mean, making the control groups is not that hard, but actually using them is tricky. Look at those Corruptors right now, hunting down whatever they can. A couple of High Templar here, pretending that they have enough energy to actually go for a storm here, but they don't. They're like, get out of here! Get off my lawn! Turns out it's just empty threats for now. Ooh, a Dark Templar over here. Slicing and dicing away at one exposed base. So there is one base over here on the left side of the map that apparently MaxPax's can harass. Zealots trying to go in on the right side as well at the same time. A few Ultras, though. We're going to be able to make short work of that. Alright. Brute Lords together with an Overseer are the way to take care of that, apparently. And now, okay, the Spore Crawler Forest will begin over here, too. So how many spores are we on? 40 Spore Crawlers at this point. It's not uncommon to literally see them going up to, like, 60. I think 50 is normally the number you aim for, but... yeah, you basically just keep on adding on more Spore Crawlers and to a point where Protoss can't really engage. So there's a lot more coming up. Love the Mama ship recalls, though. I do still think that MaxPax's actually overextended there a little bit. If you look at the resources lost at this point, yeah, it's pretty obvious that he did, right? He definitely stuck around there for a little too long. But I would love to see that engagement again with those additional units that he ended up losing, like, you know, 3 seconds or so before the recall happened. I would love to see that fight again with those units in the mix. Pretty sure that would have actually been GG. In favor of the Protoss, that is. Maybe not, but... that fight inside of the main base of the Zerg was remarkably close there, and it definitely would have been a bit different had he had all of those units there. Either way, +3/+3 is coming up here for the Zerg. A new Spire was apparently produced. Currently, he does not have a Greater Spire, so no additional Brute Lords for now, but he'll probably make another Greater Spire here soon enough. Ultras dealing quite a bit of damage, though. And what these Ultras are doing, yeah, they're trying to bait those big carriers and Void Rays to cross this, like, empty space over here and go in the direction of that 4th Nexus that MaxPax's planted down. The Corruptors, though, ready to intercept there. MaxPax's called the bluff, realized exactly what was going on, and just sort of stood his ground there with a bunch of Stalkers against Ultras. Kind of an interesting decision. But apparently the Stalkers are working out decently well so far. It's just a bunch of bloat here in the unit composition, though, because this is like, what, 20+ supply? It's not great to have. Anyways, anything that doesn't fly isn't really worthwhile, is what I'm getting at. Maybe a couple more Immortals would not hurt. Maybe a couple more Archons. Yeah, quite like those. MaxPax's taking the base in the bottom right-hand corner. Not really capable of really doing much of anything against Reynor at this point. The Reynor apparently happy enough with the units that he's got this time around. The Protoss units have already crossed. Careful, careful, careful. He needs the feedback. Okay, well. It's extremely easy to accidentally lose stuff. Like, microing this late-game army for Protoss is actually super hard. MaxPax's losing a ton of troops here for essentially free. That was a Prism full form, what are they called? High Templar. So that's very sloppy. He was looking probably to get a good engagement there and feed back those units before the Vipers could abduct, but got a little bit overly ambitious and ended up losing the Prism itself. Reynor on the hunt. He knows that there's a Prism out there somewhere. So fast. Notice as well that MaxPax's is actually purposefully not maxing out here on, like, just carriers. He's actually leaving some supply in the tank just to be able to do a couple of Zealot Warpins here and there as well. So currently he's maxed out, but still has a couple of Zealots warped in, ready to do some harassment. Wouldn't be surprised at all if he decides to lose a couple of units here eventually and then do a huge Zealot Warping here or inside of the main base of the Zerg. Either way, how many spores are we on? 51. 51 Spore Crawlers, 9 Spine Crawlers, 21 of these Photon Cannons right now, and 6 Shield Batteries. I'm liking this position for Reynor quite a bit. Reynor once again moving in here. Losing a couple of the Stalkers is MaxPax's. Honestly, he probably doesn't care too much about that. Indeed, instead he's just engaging right here on the right side of the map. Zealots are being indeed warped in inside of the main base as well. Hive might be in some trouble there. Once again, few High Templar here are being picked off. Interceptors, though, trying to optimize the damage. It's a very brave Dark Templar. Not exactly sure what's happening there. Looks like the Ultras and the Zerglings here are going to be able to clean up those Zealots for now, but the Prism is still around. Dark Templar gets absolutely decimated. Reynor at this point, by the way, only on 43 workers of his own. He's planted down so many Spore Crawlers and didn't really replace the drones that obviously took for a little while. One hero, Dark Templar. I think that's the one that may have been chasing that Baneling earlier, or maybe the one that was in charge of killing the Ultra. Either way, it is going to start working here on the hatch. He really wants to kill, yeah, whatever he can over here. There's a bunch of very important tech for the Zerg player inside of the Natural Expo. Zealots probably will be able to snipe the Hive here, so that is nice. Already, though, this was anticipated by Reynor, who started up a new lair right away. Obviously, it's going to take some time, but as long as he's not losing all of his tech structures, it's fine. I think the Prism is dead, guys. If he can find it, that is. Prism was recalled. Yep, Prism is already back home. God, that was a very angry group of corruptors right there. Looking extra badass. Alright, here's the Mama ship again. I do love seeing the mothership, honestly. It's so cool. I would love to see it flying around the map again for some offensive recalls. It's such a cool ability. We've only really recently started seeing people use that ability often. It's very strong. Previously, we would just kind of see the Mama ship fly around and then get abducted and then it died. And everyone's like, minus 400, right? That seemed to be the main use of the Mama ship, but... definitely something I do think is pretty cool. New Hive is coming up. I'm liking this position a lot for Reynor, though. Notice how patiently Reynor is playing this, right? Reynor knowing very well that it's unlikely he's going to be able to win the game here if he plays aggressively. So instead, he's really only ever engaging whenever MaxPax's is out of position or when he's pushing onto the creep. He's just trying to mine out as many minerals on his side of the map as possible. It might be time to add on a couple more drones once again, though. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Need an Overseer here as well. Okay, there's a couple of them flying around. MaxPax's trying to take control of the base on the right side. Now, he has next door neighbors right here with the creep. So that is a little bit risky. Just trying to build up the Death Bowl. The mothership once again accumulating energy. It needs 100 for that mass recall ability, but it is going to be available pretty soon. We are getting to the point where the creep has been pushed forward well, though. And yeah, if the Brute Lords can get some pickings here and there, it's extremely good. So where are we at right now as far as resources lost go? Looking really good, actually, here for the Zerg. That's insane. Reynor just showcasing what is possible when you micro this Zerg army well. MaxPax's is terrified of engaging here anywhere. Okay. This Nexus is not going to happen. But for all intents and purposes, all of those minerals are already mined out anyways. So MaxPax probably doesn't care all too much. Probably more keen on keeping the base right here on the right side of the map alive. Only on 45 workers, by the way. I don't even know where the majority of them are. A couple of them are being killed here and there. I think we may have seen another abduction here. Vipers using the spore crawlers here as well as friends. We are now on 56 spores. Moving the spore crawlers together with a newly acquired base. Makes a lot of sense. Just make it hard for the Protoss player to engage. I don't think he realizes at this point. Okay, he has seen a pylon over there. I don't think he necessarily realized that the base was over there. Now, here we go. We do have a storm drop right on top of all of those Zerg units. That is a lot of damage being done. Also, a ton of work there with the feedbacks on top of all of the Vipers, but also the Infestors. We did see an abduction, however, on the Mama ship. MaxPax's not really... well, can he push through here? I mean... I was going to say not really capable of pushing through here because there's still so many spore crawlers, but that was still a pretty good engagement for him, all things considered. Yes, the Mama ship ended up going down, but he does still have a huge Protoss army up in the air. Does Reynor have enough, though, to just break through this? There is so many interceptors still tickling away here at as many of those corruptors as they can. All right. At the same time, Ultras and Zerglings on that newly acquired base. MaxPax's needs to build up some new interceptors once again, which is why he decided to disengage. Since there's only corruptors over here left over, it is gonna be a couple of stalkers that will be able to push them back. Army on the right side. Relatively easily cleaned up. Okay, here we go once again. Reynor just jumps on top of whatever Protoss unit he can find. At this point, MaxPax's is absolutely broke, not capable of remaxing at all, whereas Reynor is still sitting at like 7,000 resources in the bank. Probably wants to spend some of that bank as well and get those larvae going. But apparently it does not matter. He does not need another army. MaxPax's knows that his opponent has been heavily outmining him throughout this match, and it is gonna be a Reynor victory. I don't know what it is about these top-tier Zerg pro players, man. They just make dealing with that Protoss late-game army look so easy. It's crazy.